All right, Patrick, thank you for allowing us to come into your room today. In reviewing your core actions, you selected core action 2B and 3B as your core actions. In reviewing and observing the lesson that was taught today, I really just want to focus this conversation around core action 2B. Question tasks require students to cite evidence from the text to support analysis, inference, and claims. Reason why I select that one is it's your core action that you selected, but equally as important, I think that best fits the lesson that you were teaching today. So the students were debating regarding whether slaves or just labormen helped build the pyramids.
Correct.
And there was two sides, one that thought they were slaves, one that were debating that they were not. So obviously you've been, how long has this been debate or lesson been going on?
This is the seventh day.
Seventh day. How many more before the conclusion of this lesson? Or was today the finale?
Today was the conclusion.
Great. That's important for me to know. So I want to focus a little bit about the questioning today. So the whole goal today was the students proposed questions to one another back and forth, and then you were kind of moderating the conversation. We're leading the conversation, which I think is huge. Because especially in a debate, we really want students to be talking to one another. I think both sides had a good job of staking their claim, asking questions. But one thing that I have a question for you is when we talk about our core actions, and especially in particular with debate, especially in middle school, as we know, social studies is a literacy class, which you provide a lot of opportunities to students to grapple with text and read and talk and write. So in particular with today's lesson, we want our students to be citing evidence from the text in addition to the verbal claims that they are making. How often did you see that your students were using terms like, if you look at the evidence from this text on this particular page, or if you look at this paragraph to support their claims? Did you see that, or over the past 7 days, have you seen?
Absolutely. A lot of what they were saying, things like 75% were slaves, things like talking about tombs, were directly from the text. However, I think using the vocabulary of as said in or looking at the text, things like that, I think I could have promoted a little bit more because they would say things like 75% were slaves. They wouldn't say as said in the text, 75% were slaves.
Yeah.
So there is that little component to it, but definitely a lot of what they were talking about was text driven.
Yep.
And when it did get astray from that, it got, I kind of tried to rally it back to, okay, we're getting a little astray from the text. Let's start focusing more on the text.
And I think that's huge. Having almost like specific sentence starters ingrained in their language, use, especially when we talk about discussion versus debate. There's one thing to have a discussion. That's just you and I talking. I'm not citing evidence. I'm just discussing with you. Especially in a debate, we want to cite specific evidence, and no better way than if you look at document D. Here's a prime example, something that I wrote down. When the kids were talking about slaves, one group said there's no way they were slaves, no way they were forced to do something like that. Well, if you look at document D, philes is the Greek word for tribe, which is really important because the groups that were building the pyramids were considered a tribe. Another really important fact from a text that I think was a missed opportunity from the students was if you look at one of the documents, it says there's no way they would have been buried with such high regard. And I think that's a specific evidence that is taken from the text. And they're absolutely right when it says they were buried not too far from the pyramid that they built. Hence, in my personal opinion, and I'm not stating a claim, I'm just using the evidence that was provided from what I heard in the class. They're absolutely right that they wouldn't have been buried so close to the pyramid if they were regarded as a slave or just a labor worker. But that could have come directly from one of the excerpts in document A. So what I'm alluding to is I think it was a great debate. I think pushing the students to use in the language to say, if you look at document A, paragraph 2, there's specific language, vocabulary, or phrases that both groups could have used to kind of convince the others, because after all, that's the purpose of it. They want to cite specific evidence for their claim, and there's no better way than factual information from a text. what is your opinion in terms of, or what support do you need, or if not support, what strategies have you used leading up to them, helping the students use language that drives right to the text?
So the actually pulling from the text, when we write essays and things like that, I have them review the essays, and a lot of times on comments and things like that, I will say, you need to say as seen in the text or as
Yep.
shown in a document B, or you have to say as said by Dr. Hawass or things like that. So in written form, I've definitely given that feedback. I
Right.
think my own personal growth, I need to give that feedback more verbally and say, okay, so now say that you found this in the text.
Yeah.
Don't just assume I know it's from the
Because
text.
Patrick, it was evident that there's the groundwork has been laid. Absolutely. Like just when you talk about conjecture, no evidence. I think that right there is it's there, it's present, where you could have possibly said, "Well, show me."
Mhm.
Everyone hold. Let's stop. Can you show me where in there? And I just think the more practice and the more they get used to forcing themselves to pick up the text and show you and cite where in the text, I think just it becomes second nature because it is evident there. And it's clearly was evident just for a simple fact that the graphic organizers that you had them complete, clearly the students are familiar with graphic organizers, so therefore they're used to going back in the text and citing their evidence. In reference to the graphic organizer, excuse me, there's a couple of opportunities that you asked them to complete here. What would you say? What might they respond with? And your response to them. I think this document is a great start for them to get used to citing their evidence. One piece of feedback that I would say, what would you say? I think that's a perfect opportunity for them to document what what article they're reading from, and then the evidence from the text would be an opportunity for them to say in document D, paragraph 2, this is the evidence. Therefore,
Right.
it forces them to have that language, but it also provides them with an easy graphic organizer for them to organize their thoughts, but especially in a debate, it just will roll off their tongue a lot easier because we provide them with a graphic organizer that essentially organizes their thoughts, but providing specific evidence from the text. And I think that's an easy switch. It's an easy fix. I think you have everything in place here. And everyone, even the students, know we're citing evidence, we're using text, but this kind of forces them almost like those sentence starters that you were saying. Back to the closing arguments, I think with PJ, I think if he had something like that up there, they had a minute or two to say, okay, we're going to, this is our final claim here. Let's go back to the graphic organizer. And if they use the language such as, we believe because in document D, it clearly states A, B, and C. And I think also at the end of the debate, I would love to have seen an opportunity for students maybe where they thought in the beginning to maybe if hearing both sides, if one or several group of people would be willing to maybe switch what side they would be on because of the evidence. I think the multiple texts that you provided, one are at or above their grade level, which I think is huge. And I think you provided with them a wide range of information, one to state one side they're on, but also to cite their evidence. So I'm really happy with the articles that you chosen. And I think they're final claim. So not only are you including the reading and the speaking, but you did build in an opportunity for them to write as well. When I think if you look at the core actions, I think you absolutely hit your core action indicator of B, questions and tasks require. I think building in opportunities that, like we spoke about earlier, that is constantly saying in the text, go back to the text, and this is why. I think that will just enhance your efforts in your core action too. What are your thoughts with my suggestions?
No, I agree, and I think I'm getting there, and the students are getting there. I think how that's going to really be shown is in that concluding statement when they're up there and they're just going back saying it showed here in this evidence that from document A, B, or C, that they did or did not build it. And when they have that knowledge going, okay, conclusion, I have to summarize it all. That's kind of when it can show that they have it.
Yep.
They have it. So I think by allowing them to use that language,
Yep.
it'll make that connection better.
Yeah,
So,
and I think using is even small things like exit tickets if this lesson was 7 days, specific exit tickets that maybe forces them to cite evidence from the text on a 7-day basis or monitor their belief and their thoughts and their claims. So at the end of it, they have a collection of all of their thoughts and their claims and their pieces of evidence. So maybe as a group, they can work together for their final claim and final piece of evidence. I think is a proper way to track their understanding. But I think will force them to constantly refer back to the text constantly because, like I said before, it's evident in your classroom. They know they need to go back to the text. I think building in opportunities that almost force them to document it, I think is the next step.
Okay? Yeah, I think that's a good place.
And then I think, moving forward, I think any exit tickets that are built, instead of what would you say, having opportunities in the text it claims. Okay. Or evidence from the text, what part of the text provides specific evidence. So just flipping the words around rather than evidence from the text, what part of the text provides specific evidence? Therefore, it forces the students to say, I need to go back and read, and then I'm going to write that specific evidence from the text. I think these are real small adjustments that I think you will have a huge impact of what you and I are talking about, forcing them to get back into the text. I think you're doing a phenomenal job with building in literacy. It's an extension of our goal and our focus here at Forest Park that we are literacy based. I think these small tweaks, these small changes, getting them back into the text will not only satisfy obviously our focus and our goals with the core action, but ultimately is going to enhance the kids' ability to draw conclusion and facts from the text, which, as we all know, is extremely important. Any feedback or anything that you would like to state or support that you need moving forward? As you know, we do have a master ELA teacher who has been working with ELA teachers across the board, drawing evidence from the text and various multiple text sets. Is there anything specific support that you need from me?
Not at the moment. I feel like the feedback you just gave me was something I can start to chew on. I think it was good area to start for me. And then if I continue forward and I need that support, I'll obviously reach out to you.
Please reach out to me, reach out to Sarah Macon. And I would love, if you're ever going to do another graphic organizer like this, and you want to run it by me beforehand, please schedule a meeting with me. I'd love to go over it with you. I would say continue with the multiple text sets that are at or above the grade level. I would say continue to build in opportunities for reading, writing, and speaking, which you did today. And then making the small tweaks with your graphic organizers that force the students back into the text. I think you're well on your way, and the students are really fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank
you, Patrick.
One